rights and other values that we share.
Between the European Union and Canada has withstood the test of time and only grows stronger. Geography may divide us, but there is no ocean that can part our shared values, shared outlook and shared way of life. Through our strategic partnership and the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, our privileged relationship has reached new heights, but today we are facing a threat to all of us. We did not provoke Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. We did not invite this confrontation between peace and war, but we share a commitment to solidarity with Ukraine and the millions of people forced to flee Putin's bombs. There is so much at stake, and no one knows this better than Canada, that is home to one of the largest Ukrainian communities in the world. The core values that we all share are under attack, and the democratic world order and the peace we have known is under threat. Scenes that we thought were confined to the dark chapters of our history books have returned. The fight of the Ukrainian people is a fight for freedom, democracy, and our way of life. We cannot leave them alone, and we will not leave them alone. With millions forced to flee, the world is again staring at an ever-worsening humanitarian crisis that we must be ready and we must be willing to face. Canada is a world leader in welcoming and resettling people in search of a way of life from horror, and we must rely on your expertise and your solidarity now again. It is really time to come together now like never before. Whatever it takes means continuing to match massive sanctions with aid, military equipment and financial support. But it must also mean real humanitarian corridors, urgent relocation, air bridges and a redoubling of efforts to seek a ceasefire. That is the response that all our citizens, whether in Canada or Europe, expect, and that is the response worthy of our place in history. This is our generation's moment to prove that we can live up to the promise of the world we inherited. We can give Ukrainian children, women and men a chance at a future without fear, but we can only do it if the world acts together. So, dear Prime Minister Trudeau, thank you for being here with us, for reaffirming your great country's commitment to democracy, to equality, to multilateralism, and to Canada's proud record of defending our shared humanity. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Metsola, Chairman McAllister of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, Président, Guillaume Courtin de la Délégation pour les relations avec le Canada, distinguished parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to be here in Brussels with you all.
Before starting, I would initially like to express my condolences following the passing of President Sassoli at the start of this year. This is a massive loss for your Parliament and for Europe. I would also like to take a moment to express my condolences to the families of the victims of the tragedy in Le Louvière and all those whose lives have been turned upside down on that day. Our thoughts are with Belgium at these difficult times.
I first addressed the EU Parliament in Strasbourg in 2017. It was the first time a Canadian Prime Minister addressed your Parliament. Back then, this Parliament saw me as someone new on the world stage. We got to work, tackling progressive issues, building the things that we thought mattered. We could see that something was lurking off on the horizon, something shadowy, something that was threatening. We didn't look close enough. When I spoke to this Parliament 5 years ago, I spoke about making multilateralism work for the middle class and those working hard to join it, so that economic frustrations don't become fertile ground for populism, nativism, protectionism, and the polarization towards more extreme political views. Well, today, we are staring these forces in the face as they threaten the peace, justice, truth, democracy, and stability of our world. And we have a choice about what we do next. Since 2017, the world has changed a lot. A global pandemic has taken the lives of over 6 million people and disrupted the lives of everyone else. A global recession saw millions lose their jobs, with many economies still struggling to bounce back. A world that is not just now forecasting, but living the dangers of climate change. A growing distrust of governments and facts. A weakening of democratic institutions. We saw one of our staunchest guarantors of the rules-based order choosing for 4 years to step away from NATO, away from multilateralism. And now, Putin's criminal invasion of a sovereign, independent, democratic Ukraine. People have a real and deep sense of uncertainty about what the future holds. These are anxious times, and people are looking for leadership and solutions. Unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in cynical populists who are trying to exploit these anxieties. They pretend to have easy solutions that play on people's fears. Even in Canada, where 90% of people are vaccinated, and our motto as a country is peace, order, and good government, we saw anti-vaccine and anti-government protests devolve into the leaders of those convoys were effective in turning citizens with real anxieties against the system best suited to allay those concerns. But democracy isn't a game. And there just aren't easy solutions to the big, complex problems we are all facing. But that doesn't mean that the way forward isn't clear. There is no greater clarity than the will of the people who want better for themselves and their children at home, and no stronger defense against destructive forces from outside our democracies than the unwavering unity of like-minded partners.
Over the past 80 years, together, we have established and bolstered a series of rules and institutions in order to increase stability and previsibility for international affairs. And we did this to protect people, to provide for them the best prospects for peace, to defend their dignity and their inalienable rights, and in order to make sure that they be free to choose their own future. Today, these rules and institutions are being threatened publicly. Vladimir Putin has violated the most fundamental principles of international law, and he is now killing innocent civilians by bombing hospitals and residential buildings. This flagrant contempt for laws and for human life constitutes a huge threat for Europe, but also for the world.
Canada, the EU, and all of our partners and allies are facing a defining moment. We cannot fail. We must meet this moment. So I speak to you today, no longer as someone quite so new. In fact, I may now be one of the longer serving progressive leaders around. And I'm certainly not going to pretend to have all the answers. But what I do know is that there is work that lies before us as thoughtful leaders, as people focused on the short and long-term well-being of all our citizens, as people committed to democracy and the values that underpin them. And that work is more important than ever. Putin thought democracy was weak. He saw our disagreements and debates as weakness. But what he has never understood is that the rigors of debate, that forceful civic engagement, is what makes us strong. And that democracy, at its best, will always be stronger than authoritarianism. But if we're going to be honest, and we need to be honest in this place, we haven't always been at our best these past years. Putin thought we were divided. He thought he could weaken the EU and NATO. He miscalculated, and he is seeing it backfire. NATO and the EU are now more resolved and united than ever, because all of us in this room who are committed to democracy know in our bones that democracy didn't happen by accident, and it will not continue without deliberate, mindful effort. Mes amis,
my friends, let me be clear. The Europeans, including our allies in Eastern Europe, can count on the friendship and the total support of Canada. Canada is heading the advance forward presence of tactical nature in Latvia for NATO. There are 10 countries of NATO coming together under that mission. For 5 years now, hundreds of Canadian soldiers have been deployed thousands of miles away from their homes to be placed just a couple of hundred kilometers from the Russian border. They are deployed in Latvia because what is important for the security of Europe is also important for the security of Canada. Recently, we announced that we would be doubling our deployment to NATO in the years to come. And these soldiers are not just defending Latvia and Eastern Europe, they are defending our freedom, our security, and all of our democracies.
We cannot let Ukraine down. They are counting on us. So let's use all the tools we have at our disposal. President Zelensky and I have been talking often about the strong ties between our countries. Canada, as mentioned, is home to the second largest Ukrainian community in the world after Russia. So we must all collectively step up to provide humanitarian aid to support families affected by this war, and already start thinking about investing to rebuild Ukraine afterwards. We must all continue to send military equipment and lethal aid to help Ukrainians in their heroic defense, not just of their lands, but of all of the principles that defend ours. And we must continue to impose unprecedented sanctions on Putin and his enablers in Russia and Belarus, increasing the pressure as much as we can. We must ensure that the decision to invade a sovereign, independent country is understood to be a strategic failure that carries with it ruinous costs for Putin and Russia. Putin's attack on Ukraine is an attack on the values that form the pillars of all democracies. We have a responsibility to make the case to people about why these values matter so much, not just to Ukrainians, but to us all. We must recommit ourselves to the work of strengthening our democracies and demonstrate the principled leadership citizens everywhere are looking for. That leadership means reinforcing the things our citizens have in common, rather than playing to their differences. The task before us is not small, but given the right tools, we can do it. And we should all be reassured of how much of this work is already underway in this place and in parliaments like it across Europe and around the world.
In Canada, our government is in the process of putting forward a legislative proposal to counter internet crime. And this year, Canada is assuming the presidency of the Coalition for Online Freedom. And we are going to continue to underscore the protection of the rights of people, inclusion and diversity online. Here in the European Union, your motto is united in diversity. In Canada, diversity is also at the very heart of who we are. Of course, we are aware that there is always more work that can be done. But when it comes to the issue of a reconciliation plan for Indigenous people to fight against systemic racism, for equality of genders, for the defense of LGBTQI communities, we are making progress, whether it be assuring the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or investing in supporting entrepreneurs in communities of colour. We are giving the tools for economic growth for those who are often left in the lurch.
Can and should play a positive role in people's lives. In Canada, like in many European countries, we made massive investments to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the right thing to do to protect our people, and it was the necessary thing to do to ensure a strong and robust economic recovery. Because we know that when we invest in people, including in the most vulnerable, and when we grow the middle class and make life more affordable for everyone, not only do individuals benefit, but our entire country and the foundations of our democracy also benefit.
Whether there be immediate consequences of lack of food security, inflation, high prices for fuel, or the longer consequences of climate change or the pandemic, democracies have to be at their best to be able to hold those difficult, necessary conversations with their citizens to find the right solutions. And when it comes to the fight against climate change, collaboration between Canada and the European Union will continue to be essential. Our work will continue to accelerate our transition towards green energy, renewable energy, respecting our commitments from COP26, securing our chains of supply, including for critical raw materials and minerals. We have to continue to work together to build a cleaner future and a more resilient economy.
European countries also share the goals of reducing poverty and inequality while growing the middle class. We share aspirations for a better, safer, and cleaner future. Progressive trade agreements like CETA are helping our economies grow and creating good jobs while protecting high standards for workers, consumers, and the environment. Our ability to pull together despite differences and deliver for people really mattered, and I thank you all for that. With the longest coastline in the world, Canada's shores reach out into the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic oceans, and our connections with the whole of the Americas is strong. We're one of the most globally connected partners at the UN, with memberships in NATO, the G7, the G20, the Arctic Council, APEC, the OAS, the Commonwealth, and La Francophonie. We all have a lot of work to do, and collaboration will be key to success towards building a better future for our kids and our grandkids. It will require constant efforts, but I'm confident that we are up to the task. I'm confident all of us here today. I'm confident in the resilience of our institutions, and mostly I'm confident in our citizens. And I can say that because of what I've witnessed over the past 4 weeks. The resolve of our united response to this unacceptable invasion has been stronger than anything Putin expected. And not just from governments, but from citizens in all our countries. It's that spirit and resolve that we must take forward with us. The European Union has mobilized to defend democracy. And as always, you can count on the friendship and full support of Canada every step of the way.
Together, we have to support democracies around the world, including those who are most fragile, and fight against authoritarianism, thanks to providing more investment and providing more committed leadership as well. We have to provide support for courageous people like President Zelensky and those Ukrainians who are fighting for their rights. And we have to continue our work, each and every one of us, in order to improve our democracies in our own countries.
5 years ago, we saw the storm clouds on the horizon. But today, we are clear-eyed.
Let us continue to fight lies with truth, fear with facts, division with unity.
As long as we don't take our democracy for granted, as long as we keep working every day to make it better, as long as our partnerships are strong, we can be confident in the future. In the words of Volodymyr Zelensky, light will win over darkness. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Trudeau, for those powerful words and messages. We will now hear from representatives of all political groups in this House, starting with the EPP Group, Siegfried Mureşan.
Thank you, Madam President. Prime Minister Trudeau, welcome. Welcome to Europe. Thank you for addressing the people of Europe today, and thank you very much for choosing the European Parliament to address the people of Europe today. Dear colleagues, Canadian soldiers have fought for democracy and freedom in Europe throughout the First World War, throughout the Second World War, we have seen, we have known, we have felt that we can rely on the people of Canada and on Canada when it comes to defending freedom, democracy in Europe. And today, Prime Minister, you came again to Europe to defend a European country. And for this, we all in Europe and all of us in the free world say thank you. The partnership between Canada and the European Union is a long one, is a strong one. It is based on democracy. It is based on the rule of law. It is based on equality. It is based on freedom of the speech. And now is the time for all free nations to stand up in the name of these values, to be united and defend Ukraine, because defending Ukraine means defending Europe and it means defending the free world. The rules that our Western societies are built on are good for the people, and now is the time to reject the habits and the lack of rules on which the regime of Vladimir Putin is based on. Now is the time for all of us to say no to threat, to exclusion, to hate, to fear, to intimidation, because we have all seen that after the people of Central and Eastern Europe have defeated communism 30 years ago, choosing transatlantic values, choosing the European Union, choosing NATO membership brought safety, stability and prosperity to Central and Eastern European countries. And if this is what the people of Ukraine choose for their country, it is our duty as European Union and as Canada to stand by the side of the people of Ukraine together. This is the first and most important thing that we have to do to answer the call of the people of Ukraine. The second thing is to be united. And I believe this is what citizens in Europe and in Canada expect of us, because we have seen people in Helsinki, in Tallinn, in Prague, in Berlin, in Paris, in Warsaw, going to the street in defending Ukraine, exactly as people of Canada have went to the street to Montreal, to Hamilton, to Edmonton, to Toronto and to Canada in the past weeks. We have to be united. This is what the people expect of us. And we have shown unity already in the last weeks by acting together when it came to sanctions. But I believe, dear colleagues, I believe, Prime Minister, as you have also said, we have to do more when it comes to sanctions. Maximum support to Ukraine, but also maximum possible cost for the Russian Federation. We have to enlarge the list of Russian politicians, of Russian business people and oligarchs, enlarge the list of Russian business people and oligarchs whom we sanction. We have to tell them very clearly, no more skiing in the Alps, no more shopping in Paris or Vienna, no more sunbathing in Nice or on the coasts of Europe, as long as the regime which they are supporting in Russia is invading a free country. We have to close loopholes. We have to forbid access to public procurement for Russian companies, be it private or public, here in the European Union and also in Canada. And we have to reduce our dependency on Russian fossil fuels as much as possible and as soon as possible. We have to be honest and transparent also to the people in our countries in telling them that defending democracy costs, but not defending democracy would cost even more. Now is the time for leadership. It is the time for unity. It is the time for defending the European values, the transatlantic values, the alliances that we are together in, which have proven the test of time. They stood the test of time. Thank you once again very much for coming to Europe today, for speaking to us, to the Parliament, for showing your solidarity. It is always good to know